If you're feeling a little lost in your career right now, you can completely change the trajectory of your life in just 6 months using a simple framework that I've used and I've seen countless other people use to bring them success. And that framework is just education, action, consistency, time, and repeat. In this video, I'm going to share with you how I've used this framework to go from college dropout and wantrepreneur to a full-time freelancer making good money with complete autonomy and freedom. Oh, and just a disclaimer, this video is not going to focus solely on just optimizing for income, but instead I'm going to share the game plan that I think a lot of people should follow as they're starting out in their career. And that is to teach themselves a valuable skill and then make an income from it, whether that's freelancing or a job, and then to make the next step once they have those valuable skills and they actually are confident that they can earn good money. What this strategy does is it mitigates a lot of risk because you always have a valuable skill set to fall back on. You know that you can teach yourself something and you can learn something that is valuable. Therefore, you'll be able to repeat this in future if you're ever in a situation where you need to upskill again and learn something new. In this video, I want to share how I've got to this stage and what I would do if I was starting from the beginning. This method is really how you build self-reliance in the digital age. And it's an idea I've had in my head for quite a while, and I just want to get it out there and hopefully it will help some people to kind of follow a similar path. So here is how to go about it. Step 1 is education. YouTube is free and Googling is free. The only thing you need is a willingness to learn and some time. You can teach yourself pretty much anything online, and as long as it doesn't need some form of license to actually operate that skill and actually do that professionally, the chances are you can pretty much teach yourself anything that can be freelance. Things like writing, designing, developing. Now, when you decide to learn a skill, you don't just find the time to learn that skill, you need to make the time. What I mean by this is that you need to be intentional with your schedule. If you say that you're going to learn when you just have some time, then the chances are you'll never have that time. Instead, what you need to do is actually carve out that time and be intentional about blocking out periods of time to learn, and to do that consistently. When deciding what skill you should learn, there's really 3 things to consider, and that is happy, smart, and useful. So what will make you happy? What is a smart decision? And what is useful to other people. This is a framework from Derek Sivers that I find incredibly useful when you're trying to offer value to someone or think about the next move in your career. So let's dig into those. The first one is happy. A lot of people think that the skill they commit to learning has to be the thing they do forever, and it has to be the thing that they're incredibly passionate about. And the problem with this passion hypothesis is that the chances are you're not necessarily passionate about something straight away, and it's very hard to find the thing that you're wildly passionate about. When you're choosing something that will make you happy, it doesn't mean it has to be the thing you do forever, and it doesn't mean it has to consume your whole life, but it helps if you're curious about the topic and you want to learn about it. Doing it doesn't seem like some awful chore, but it actually seems interesting. When you're committing to learn to a skill, it is going to take some hard work and it is going to take time. So you need to be curious about that, because that is going to help you feel motivated and it's going to help you to continue learning. So choose an industry and a skill that you want to learn about, and then cut off all other options. Because when you decide not to cut off those other options, what's going to happen is when things get difficult and when you get into the dip, so that part after the beginning when it's nice and easy and it's all fun, and you get to the dip where it's kind of a slog for a little while, you likely want to move on to learning something else, because that will be nice and easy to begin with, and then you'll get to the dip of that thing and then you want to move on to another skill. Instead, you just need to decide and to commit to learning one skill. When I say one skill, it doesn't mean actually just one very specific skill, it means one broad skill. For example, I learned to be a web designer and web developer. It is very complementary, design and development, but that is really like one industry, and I am able to design a website and build the website itself. If you're interested in marketing, you should learn a couple areas in marketing, but you shouldn't try be a full stack marketer and learn everything. Once you cut off all other options, you'll become laser focused on learning that one thing, and you'll learn it much quicker. The second point is smart. So really you want to choose something that is going to be smart in the long term. So if you choose a skill that is not going to be around in 5 years' time, then it's not going to really make much sense to learn it. Because if you spend the next year or so learning this skill, and then all of a sudden there's no demand for this skill in future, then you've kind of just wasted your time. So choose something that is going to have longevity. Choose a skill that will be around in the next 5-10 years. There's no exact way to know if a skill is going to stick around, but the chances are is that if it's creative and if there is a constant demand for something like that, it'll probably be around for a while. And remember, if money is your goal, then choose a skill and an industry that has the right earning potential. Because again, it's pointless learning a really intricate skill and trying to master something if that skill never has the possibility to earn you enough money to live the lifestyle you want to live. And third, there is useful. So how can that skill that you're going to learn be useful to other people? Let's say you want to be a writer. Well, a writer can be useful because you could get hired for a job, so you could be useful to a company for being a content writer. Then you could also be useful to companies being an outside contractor, so being a freelancer for that company. You could also be useful to a mass audience of people by writing on your own blog, helping them improve some aspect of their life or do something that they want. And you can also write a book. So there's a lot of different ways that you could apply those skills. A job and freelancing are going to be the easiest ones to do in the beginning, but it's important to have some form of progression in that industry and with that skill. Something to keep in mind here is the ladders of leverage. In the beginning, you're going to start at the bottom of the ladders. You're not going to have that much leverage, and you'll likely be doing some form of service work. Whether that's working a full-time job or that is freelancing for a company, they are typically the lowest levels of leverage, but they're the easiest to get started and the best way to earn money in the beginning. If you choose a skill that has no real progression in terms of leverage, then it's going to be pretty difficult because you'll always be stuck at the bottom rungs of the ladder. Instead, you want to choose a skill where you're able to leverage that skill in future and continue working up the ladders of leverage. For example, if you wanted to be a videographer, well, initially you might start working for a company and then you could go freelance, and that's going to give you a little bit more leverage because you might decide your own hours, you have autonomy, you have freedom. Then you decide to hire a few people and you build an agency. Again, you're going another rung up that ladder. And now you decide to create unique content and put that on YouTube. So what you're doing with the content is you're creating something one time and you're displaying that to millions of people. Theoretically, it's the same amount of work if one person sees that video than if 1 million people see that video. So you can see here, once you start to move up these rungs, you're creating more leverage because one person sat in their room just filming a video or creating their own little videos on YouTube is incredibly well leveraged because they can reach millions of people. And really, that videographer could really reach the top rungs of that ladder by creating their own product or building a tool to help videographers do a specific thing. As you can see here, there's a natural progression with that skill. That person is not always going to be stuck working for someone else because they can then turn that skill into their own business, and then they can keep on creating leverage and working their way up that ladder. Once you've learned the fundamentals of that skill, you now need to put it into action, because through action you're going to learn more and you're going to continue getting better at that skill. But you're also going to open yourself up to a lot of opportunities. So at this stage, you need to build your portfolio, you need to work on passion projects, and you need to pitch potential clients and potential employers. Finally, you just want to repeat this process over and over again. This is really how you're going to learn. It's great watching a YouTube video or reading a blog or taking a course, but ultimately most of the learning happens through taking action. It happens through making mistakes and figuring out better ways to do things. And building a portfolio is a crucial piece of this because people don't want to hear about what you can make or what you will make. They want to see what you have made, and they want to understand how that relates to their business. Each portfolio project offers a new opportunity to continue learning and solve new problems and continue evolving your skills. And then by working on your own passion projects, you're essentially creating your own little sandbox to learn it. To build this sandbox for learning, what you need to do is find the right medium to test your skills. So if you're a writer, then a great thing to do would be to start a blog. Start writing some posts and try build an audience, because ultimately someone is much more likely to hire a writer who already has an audience than someone who has just written a couple pieces that you can only see on their portfolio. And this applies to pretty much any skill. You can build some form of sandbox and some form of place to play around with things and learn things and experiment and build your own assets. These assets are going to be incredibly impressive to potential employers, potential clients, but you could also build these into long-term assets. If you want to learn SEO, then why not set up an affiliate site and grow that affiliate site? Show employers that you've built this thing, you've got hundreds of thousands of people to this website, so you can do it for them. And once you have a few pieces under your belt, it's important to pitch potential employers and potential clients before you feel ready, because the chances are it's going to take you a very, very long time to feel ready, and really you're probably never going to feel fully ready. At first, it will be completely terrifying. You'll probably get ignored a lot of times. Occasionally you might get rejected, but over time you start to get used to this fear of rejection and you start to overcome it. It doesn't seem like this huge daunting thing if no one replies to your emails or if someone rejects your proposition. You need to understand that typically conversion rates are really low. If you're building a landing page, a conversion rate of 2 to 3% is pretty good. But a conversion rate of 2 to 3% when you're pitching someone might mean you need to almost pitch 100 people just to get 2 replies and 2 positive responses. Now, pitching is hard and it takes time to improve, but here are some things to do to improve your pitches and to really just open yourself up to potential serendipity by being the person who sends the message and goes for the opportunity. And the first thing is to focus on how your pitch benefits the other person. The pitch should not be about you getting a benefit. There should be some form of mutual benefit between this arrangement, but ultimately they're the person who receives the benefit from your pitch. So how would you help their business? And why should they trust you? And ultimately, why should they care? The second thing is to never come across as needy or desperate, because if you come across as needy or desperate, that is going to be the biggest turn away for any potential employer or any potential client. Because if they sense that you really need this, then the chances are they're going to sense that there's something wrong with this person or this arrangement or their skills. The third thing is to position yourself as an expert and not a technician. So even if you're not a pro at that skill, the chances are you've been learning it for long enough now that you have some form of specialized knowledge. And that specialized knowledge can be really valuable to companies. While you might not feel like you're this expert who's been doing it for years, what you actually have is some form of expertise. You might not be an expert in your specific industry, but you're an expert to these companies because you can provide them a lot of value. So what you want to do is position yourself as an expert and not just a technician who comes in there and gets told what to do. You are someone who has value and is able to create value. And the fourth tip is to know your worth, because at the end of the day, you should always know that you can walk away from some sort of arrangement. If someone's trying to propose really bad terms for a project, or if someone is just generally trying to take advantage of you because you don't have loads of experience, you should always remember that you can walk away from that situation. At the end of the day, pitching someone is a negotiation. Step 3 is consistency. So building a business or a successful career is all really just a flywheel. So a flywheel runs on momentum. It's really difficult to get started in the beginning. There's a lot of energy that has to get exerted to make that flywheel move in the beginning. But once it starts to move, there is momentum keeping it going. Consistency is what builds this momentum. As boring as it sounds, there's no substitute for getting a lot of shots on goal and turning up every day and just doing the work day in, day out. You could spend years looking for shortcuts to do this kind of thing, but ultimately you just need to be consistent and to do it consistently. Being consistent is going to get you there much quicker than trying to follow these hacks and these tricks and these little tips to get you there quicker, because ultimately the only thing that actually counts is doing something and doing it consistently. And unfortunately, there's not really much I can say or anyone else can tell you to be consistent, because this is one of those things that's an internal battle, and you need to figure out how to be consistent yourself and how to build that self-discipline. If you're not consistent, then you probably need to evaluate if you're serious enough about making this change. And step 4 is time. Now, compound interest takes time, and mastering a skill is going to take time. There's no shortcut for the work. Sure, people can help you onto the right direction, but they cannot do the work for you, and procrastinating is not going to help. At the end of the day, you've got to do this thing for a period of time, and you've got to commit to the process for a period of time. Something I find really useful is deciding I'm going to do something and then committing to consistently doing that for X period of time. Let's say that period of time was 2 years. Once that 2 years is up, then I'll evaluate whether I'm gonna change directions or I'm gonna continue, maybe double down on this current direction. Something I like to remind myself is that the business that you work on every single day for 2 years is always gonna be better than the business ideas that you convince yourself out of ever pursuing because you're too scared. And the relationship that you continue building day after day is always gonna be better than jumping from relationship to relationship. Really, when you find something that is good in life, the best thing to do is to double down on that thing, be consistent and put in the time, and just really commit to doing something for a period of time. Unfortunately, consistency and putting in the time is really not something that is sexy, and it is not very appealing to do that because you have to actually commit a period of time in your life to doing something. You have to sacrifice at least a little bit. While I don't advocate for working 20 friggin' hours a day, it is important to actually consistently put in the work and put in the time. And there'll be times where you do feel like things are going nowhere and you probably want to give up, but that's the most important time to keep going and to continue learning and taking action, being consistent, and just putting in the time. Like a lot of the best things in life, they're incredibly simple. They're just not easy. See, the formula of education, action, consistency, and time is so simple. It is so obvious and we all know we should be doing it. But the thing is, most people do not do that. Really, this framework is a great method for upskilling. It's a great way to build a freelance business, to get a good job, or even build your own business that is not service-based. A lot of the time you'll see successful people and they've all gone through some phase of their life where they've committed to learning something and upskilling themselves. They don't wait for other people to teach them things and they don't wait for other people to tell them to do things. They just do it themselves. And ultimately, I feel like this method is really the key to any form of self-improvement. These 4 elements are vital to improve any aspect of your life. If you have any thoughts on this framework, and if you think I missed anything, if you have any examples of maybe you followed this framework and improved your life, or other people who've done that, then drop it in the comments because I'd love to hear it. If you have any questions, then contact me by email. Probably the best way to email me is to sign up to my newsletter, which is called the Sunday Filter. I send out 1 email every week for creators, entrepreneurs, and freelancers, and it's really just sharing ideas, tools, and resources to help you live better and build independent income. As soon as you receive any email from me, you can just reply to that and it'll go straight to my personal inbox. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.